Kenya's Indian Ocean coastline stretches for nearly 550 kilometers, and at any point along its length, the views and ambience are enough to entice anyone to just sit back and relax. Although there was a holiday atmosphere, relaxing was not on the agenda for the 38 crews who made their way to Kilifi for the 7th round of the KCB Kenya National Rally Championship. Kilifi is located at the midpoint of the long coastline, and the crews were here for the KCB Visa Card Rally. The rally would be taking place inland on roads that are acknowledged to be amongst the best in the country. They are fast and open, but the loose surface calls for caution. Especially with big accidents having been a regular feature on recent events. The championship was at a crucial stage, especially for Baldev Chaga, who desperately needed a podium place if he was to maintain his lead over Tundo. Carl Tundo, the defending champion, was lying second, 60 points behind, and if he beat Chaga on this one, would be in with a chance of retaining the title.
I'm not going to let him get away with it, definitely. Lady Luck has been on his side. I hope he doesn't have any major problems, but just enough for me to keep ahead of him.
Amongst the favourites for outright victory was Riaz Kruji from Uganda, who had won the last 2 KNRC events at the coast. This was the first time a rally had been based in Kilifi, and it was not surprising that the turnout at the ceremonial start was massive. Carl Tundo and Tim Jessup had been drawn number 1. They are looking to replace the car for next season, and this would be their second last outing behind the wheel of the N10. There would be only one stage on day 1, a 1.5 kilometer spectator special for the benefit of the local residents who would not have the opportunity to see the main rally action the following day. A football pitch was the venue, with a track looping between the goalposts. Before the action, the cars were all held at the start point at the edge of the Kilifi Creek. In the old days, the only way across the creek was by ferry between ramps on each side. This experience has been replaced by a bridge necessitated by the modern-day volume of traffic. The backdrop to the start of the stage was stunning, but only those looking on could enjoy it. For the crews, it was all about the clock. For Riaz Kruji and Syed Kadri, it was a disastrous start to the rally. The fuel pump failed, forcing them to abort the stage and accept a 5-minute penalty. It's not often the first car on the road has an advantage, but on this stage it did, and Carl Tundo and Tim Jessup were quickest on a time of 53 seconds. They shared the time with Baldev Chaga and Farooq Yusuf in the Triton N12, whose dust trail was a wall of sand. In third were Lee Rose and Piers Dakin, but apart from the ruts, they were hampered by a misfire which easily accounted for the 1 second difference. The remaining cars all scored slower and slower times. The field eventually spread by just over 90 seconds. The cars returned across the bridge heading for the service park, where they were held in Park Fermé overnight. They were joined by Riaz Kruji, who would slot back into 6th on the road. With 2 sections having been dropped from the itinerary, the route was reduced to 8 stages, which amounted to 161 kilometers of competitive motoring. The first 36-kilometer stage would be the most dramatic of the season, where the loose surface would claim an unprecedented number of victims. The shortened route meant the cars would only pass the spectator point on stage 4 2 times. Carl Tundo and Tim Jessup would face the stages first and set off from Sokoke at a pace they hoped would keep them at the front. Little did they know that 2 minutes later, their rally would be over. The rear end had got away on a fast right and they rolled into the undergrowth. They got out bruised and battered, which is more than can be said for the car, which wasn't going anywhere.
We just braked into the corner and the back came out. And then we slid off the camber and hit the bank with this tyre. And then I think it flipped up into the air and over.
You okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Baldev Chaga and Farooq Yusuf were on the scene 3 minutes later, and although they couldn't see the car, they were waved on by the crew. The incident forced them to be cautious, and they were only 7th quickest through the stage. They soon regained confidence and by service were lying 2nd overall.
We saw a flash off the road. Well, we didn't see the car, but we saw a flash, so we knew he was out. And immediately I kind of lost concentration. And for the rest of the stage, we were actually not as quick as we thought as quick as we should have been. So Lee picked quite a bit of time on us. We tried.
Despite the persistent misfire, Lee Rose and Piers Dakin were quickest through each of the opening 3 stages, taking command of the rally right from the start. The Evo 9 is the quickest car amongst the front runners, and this combined with good pace notes put them in the lead by 90 seconds.
We're driving to the best of our abilities under the circumstances. It just makes it a little bit more tricky to commit when you've got that misfire, because you don't know if you'll recover from that extra speed.
Having proved the Mitsubishi Evo 6 can match the front-end pace, Azhar Anwar and Julius Gige were on the attack. They were in 3rd, but it was only by a whisker, and with such strong competition all around them, they were in for a full day of hard rallying.
So I was a bit erratic in my driving. Usually I can drive clean and not damage the car. I think we've damaged it a little bit, not too bad, but I hope the boys will fix it properly for me to keep going.
Asad Anwar and Kashif Sheikh were also powering through the stages, setting times in the top 6. But on such a fast rally, this placed them nearly 2 minutes behind the leaders. They were locked in a battle with Azhar and were only 12 seconds behind going into stage 4 when they became the 2nd car to roll. It was a big accident, and the crew were extremely lucky, which says a lot for the safety of modern-day rally cars.
On a easy right, 2 wheels went off, and there's something in the grass we caught and just flipped. We flew about 15 feet in the air and landed on the roof. I've torn my ligaments on my shoulder or the back, and rolled over twice after that.
Also out were Riaz Kruji and Syed Kadri. A rear shock absorber burst, and being too far from help, were forced to retire. There was the consolation that when they dropped out, they were lying 2nd, but a hat-trick win would have been out of reach, being lumbered with a 5-minute penalty from the day before. The Ugandan hopes were now with Emmanuel Kato and Moses Matovu. They were desperate to get the car to the finish, but were only driving at 8 tenths. But it was quick enough to be challenging for 3rd. They were only 4 seconds behind Anwar in 4th, with the potential of the N14 at last reaping rewards.
To be honest with you, we're not going for it. You know, we just want to learn the car and get her home literally in one piece, you know. I want to be able to get her home and just wash the car and have it ready for the next rally. You know, because it's the first 3 events, you know, we've just had so much bad luck.
Surprisingly, it was Ian Duncan and Amos Slutch in 5th. The pickup was no match to the group ends ahead, but with Duncan at the wheel, we can be sure that every ounce of speed was being extracted. They were 5 minutes behind with little chance of closing the gap. Sami Aslam and Saqib Malik were driving at their own comfortable pace. They are always impressively quick, mostly by choosing the most economical line with no drama. They were in 6th. After 4 of the 8 stages of the rally, Lee Rose held the lead by 91 seconds. It was doubtful Chaga would take up the bait, as 2nd was good enough for the championship. Back on stage 2, Carl Tundo and Tim Jessup were now spectators and had chosen the most enviable of locations. Anthony Nielsen and Mike Ogupit are destined to be future champions, and their pace reflected this. But soon after the start, the intercom packed up. When they came round Tundo's corner, they were at max, but in the dust it all went wrong, and they rolled at speed, ending up facing the wrong way, with the road a long way behind them.
Yeah, okay, it was going well, and okay, our intercom just all of a sudden stopped working. So we're trying to communicate shouting, and he said a medium left, and I thought it was a mark, so I just took it flat out.
The action on this stretch of the road was far from over. Tuaha Zubedi and Rafael Kiva in yet another Subaru also lost the back end and gracefully slid down the road on their roof. Next came Abdul Rahman and George Jaroge. They avoided a roll but firmly planted their Impreza into the bank. Just when they all thought they were safe to recover their cars, Omar Zahid and Anthony Jenga in the Sapporo decided to join the party. The tally at the end was 5 cars. No one was hurt, and the crews gathered together for a group picture, having been declared the founder members of the Sukoke scrapyard. Further up the road, not far from where Asad Anwar had redesigned his car, Charles Turl and Randeep Basin got caught in ruts and were the last of the 7 cars to end the rally on their roof. The service park for the rally was located in the picturesque grounds of the Minarani Club, which was also the host hotel for the event. The club is set above the cliff top overlooking Kilifi Creek. Here, guests are offered a memorable and unique holiday experience, from relaxing on the exclusive beach cove to all manner of water sports and excursions. Amongst the many attractions is a spectacular view. This is the scene that all the rooms enjoy. The centerpiece of the club is its magnificent swimming pool set adjacent to the restaurant. With the Indian Ocean backdrop, one almost feels as though they are swimming in the sea itself. A perfect holiday destination.
We've got our own private beach with all the water sport facilities. We've got the best ocean views in the vicinity of Minarani on the coastal area and what have you. And I can assure you, we only got happy guests going away from here.
6 crews had made the journey to the coast to take part in the two-wheel drive championship, but only 2 of them were in contention for the title. Leonardo Varesi had taken over the lead from Charles Hinga in the last event, but with only 7 points separating them, the outcome of the rally was crucial. Charles Hinga with Evans Mwenda had been drawn first in the category and needed to win if they were to have any chance at the title. But it was not to be. Only 5 kilometers into the first stage, the engine cried enough, and they were out. When Leonardo Varesi and Kigondo Karedi passed them on the road, they knew that all they had to do now was finish. It was easier said than done, as right from the start, the intercom packed up, they lost second gear, and the clutch was slipping. Their times were uncompetitive, but being slowest didn't matter. They eventually lost 11 minutes to the others, but 4th was enough to extend their lead in the championship.
Yeah, it was disappointing because we didn't rally. We love to rally, we like to push, we like to move, but we didn't. But in the end, we are happy. We collected 11 points.
Adnan Suhail and Zahir Shah saw the opportunity of an outright win and pushed the Daihatsu Special as hard as they dared. The two-wheel drive itinerary only included the first 3 stages, and out of these, the Daihatsu was quickest over 2 of them. But they lost time in the deep sand on stage 3 and had to accept second. Jasmeet Chana and Randeep Kalsi are the defending two-wheel drive champions and were the favourites to win right from the start. They are out of the championship race for this year and were driving to keep their hand in before taking on the big boys next year. The Daihatsu had given them a good run, but they had upped the pace when it was needed to reach the finish in the lead. This was their third win of the season, proving that if they hadn't been so unlucky early on in the calendar, the title would have been theirs again.
We had lost the championship from Safari onwards. So we decided to put in some more effort in the car, get it running properly, and basically now it's running 100%.
The four finishers were eventually separated by nearly 12 minutes, but it only turned out to be a two-horse race between Chana and Suhail. Leonardo Veresi had extended his lead in the championship to 18 points. With 20 points earned for a win, Charles Hinger's only hope is that he wins the last event of the year and Veresi fails to finish. Up at the front of the rally, the leaders were tackling stage 5. Lee Rose and Piers Dakin were now gauging their pace against the times of the others, sufficiently quick enough to just stay ahead. Over the two stages between service breaks, they eased out another 15 seconds to maintain their lead. Baldev Chaga and Farooq Yusuf were also running at a pace to just ensure second place. As expected, they were not taking on a head-to-head race with Rose and were more intent on increasing the gap between them and the car behind. The battle for third place was becoming a race between the N14 of Emmanuel Kato and the Evo 6 of Azhar Anwar. Kato lost by 2 seconds on stage 5, but then gained 20 seconds on stage 6, and with 2 stages remaining, took over the position. Azhar Anwar and Julius Gige did what they could, but had to relinquish third place, bowing to Kato's determination. Azhar had been quicker than Kato earlier in the day and was confident of recovering the 14 seconds lost, but it would come down to the wire. With the suspension on the pickup having taken a lot of punishment at the first loop, the repairs had cost Ian Duncan and Amo Sludge 90 seconds in penalties. This dropped them from 5th to 9th on the leaderboard, and once back on the road were once again at full throttle. Over the next 40 kilometers, they recovered 1 place. With Duncan dropping back, Sami Aslam moved up to 5th. They were too far behind to chase for 4th and were concentrating on just maintaining a consistent pace. Their biggest threat was now coming from behind. The threat was Sushil Shah and Abdul Sidi. They were actually locked in a cat-and-mouse game with Alfir Khan, swapping 5th place with them on each section. Catching Sami Aslam had become a bonus. Alfir and Faisal Khan were having to push the old Impreza to stay in touch with the more powerful cars ahead, and their performance was remarkable. They were matching Sushil Shah's speed without much fuss, although if his driving style was less flamboyant, he might have been even quicker. For now, they were equal 6th.
I'm not complaining about the power so much because the surface is also quite loose, so you have to be careful to keep it on the road, yeah. But in the opens where you get the long straights, that's where we are really losing out.
With only 50 kilometers of competitive motoring remaining, the results board was still not final, especially with the times for 3rd and 5th places so close. The rate of attrition was the highest that has been seen all season, and only 18 cars were still running. Anwar Pandya and Salim Khan have yet to demonstrate their full potential. They start each rally wondering what problem they will face, especially as it's different on each event. This time, the car caught fire, but they are resilient and got going to finish 10th.
Had another entertaining moment. My car caught fire. We had the extinguishers, but we didn't have a knife to cut the tire wraps.
You had a sick navigator, you ran out of fuel.
And this time I got fire. It's all in sequence.
The only lady in the event was Samira Khan, navigating for her uncle Aslam in a classic Ford Escort RS. The car performs at its best at over 3,000 revs, which means that they always appear to be at max. They have already won the 2008 Classic Car Cup, and 15th on this event consolidated this even further.
It must be quite nerve-wracking.
It is a bit, but then I try not to think about it and try and just keep on the notes and focus on just, reading the notes and directing the driver, and that helps quite a lot. Yeah, the minute you start thinking about, how fast you're going and how twisty it gets and how rutty it is, then, you kind of scare yourself, really.
Those still in the rally were in the closing 2 stages, but for Ian Duncan and Amos Sludge, they were not quite long enough. They overtook Khan for 6th place but lost 5th by just 10 seconds. Throughout the day, Sushil Shah and Abdul Sidi had displayed a driving style that we have not seen before. They had maintained the pressure right to the end and were rewarded with 5th. Azhar Anwar with Julius Gege had started the section only 5 seconds behind Kato, both driving for 3rd. Although they beat their earlier time over the stage by 45 seconds, Kato was even quicker and they had to accept 4th.
Actually, in the last service, we made a lot of changes to the car, which included taking out about 30 kilos, that's one tire and the front grille and some other bits. And then we lowered the car, and then we lowered the tire pressures, we reset the shock absorbers, and yet he beat us. So I need another car.
Emmanuel Kato and Moses Motovu also smashed their earlier time and gave the N14 its first stage win. They had at last proved the car can be a winner. It had been a good day's rallying, and 3rd put them on the podium alongside Kenya's elite.
We had to get her home in one piece. I was beginning to think that I didn't know how to drive and get a car home, because the last 3 events, we damaged the car. What was most satisfying of all was that we did the fastest time. It's our first fastest time in Kenya for a long, long time.
Baldev Chaga and Farooq Yusuf may have been second, but it had been a defensive and tense drive. They achieved their objective of being in the top 3, but the finish line and getting there safely couldn't come soon enough.
It's been a fantastic day out. Being first on the road was a bit of a problem, but we've kept it together, we've kept it clean. We've had one puncher, we drove on it. Lucky enough, we didn't lose our 2nd position. But all in all, we're very happy to be here today in this position.
Although they had a cushion, Lee Rose and Piers Dakin added another stage win to make them fastest over 5 of the 8 stages of the rally. They extended their lead even further, but without the misfire, it would have been an even more satisfying victory. At the finish back in Kilifi, the crowds had gathered once again. They may have missed the action, but weren't going to miss the celebrations.
And coming in first position is Lee Rose and Piers Dakin.
This was Lee Rose and Piers Dakin's 3rd win of the season, and they have now been on the podium on every rally they have finished.
We've had a bit of a troublesome day in so much as the car's had a misfire all day, and I haven't been 100% on the ball. It's been fairly tricky out there, lots of people coming unstuck, so I've taken it relatively easy today. And
Lee Rose eventually won by just over 3 minutes, but the highlight of the rally had been the race for 3rd, which Emmanuel Kato won by 30 seconds. Anwar Pandya will be pleased to have come 10th. The 2 classics finished in 15th and 17th, with the Rex Omole 35 minutes behind in last place. Baldev Chaga now only needs 10 points to be assured of the title. Lee Rose's only chance is if he wins the last event and Chaga fails to finish.